films, some animation. Got it. And could I ask, if you're on the Padlet, you're welcome to my brushes. They're two really simple brushes. One is in fact just the basic round brush with some pressure set to it. You could download those. They should go over into Procreate, other Clip Studio, I think, but they're Photoshop brushes. Could I ask that people put in their favorite frame from a film? Animation, actually could be photography or illustration even, but maybe an animated film. Just we've got one or two new options to do some quick studies from. We'll do really quick studies. That's the idea. So if you're on the Padlet, just Google search favorite frame from a film. Live action can be useful. It could be a photo from your camera if you've taken something interesting. It's a process that I do. You go out and about, and it makes just general life quite fun. You see something interesting, or you try to compose something quite boring in a quite interesting way, and that's something to draw later. So it's a digital version of. I think Amy will talk about plein air and painting outside. I don't practice what I preach as much as I should and go and paint outside. So this is a nice kind of digital study. And the process will be, we're only going to work to sort of these bottom two images levels. We're going to work in grayscale. We're going to work as a tonal value study. But I just wanted to demonstrate the way I like to think of looking at the image in front of you. So thumbnails, just trying to break it down to the big core shapes, the big value shapes there are. And from this, you could work any of these up with detail, make your brush smaller, use a different type of brush. But in terms of quick studies, we're gonna do this. I've done these little Photoshop desaturation of this frame, also a blurred version. We often say, we said it in the previous two sessions, squint your eyes, just try to take out all the extra information you don't need to worry about on your first pass. And a mosaic effect in Photoshop, which also just crunches those values down to something really simple. So without further ado, cool, we've got some good frames. I'll start with that exact frame. So you're in any software. If you're on physical paper, we had a lot of people working traditionally last week. So what I'm going to do is work with someone of a highlight, someone of a mid-tone, someone of a dark tone, and just bounce off the image itself and try to work out what's there. So it's about training your eye. So I'm starting with this little thumbnail. I'll zoom in a little bit. I generally advise that you work quite small. So I'm going to work and just block in the background first. I'm working white and black. You can go anyway. If you're sketching, just sketch fast and maybe with a brush or a pen, which is quite unforgiving. And then just try to block in these. Now I'm working super big, and I like this kind of bokeh effect get from this brush. This is the standard default brush. And I'm working slightly too big, so that I have to make a shape and then cut it back in. And when you want a bit more detail, say like the character there. And my sky is way too dark. So I'm just getting my line and length in terms of drawing. These drawing clubs are all about just the process of practicing and being loose. And I've done a practice where this was going a lot better than it is now. So I'm quite happy to say, well, it's not quite, not quite around it. Going to paint back in this value. And the reason you're doing these kind of warm-ups, the last 2 weeks we're doing little loose sketches around the page, is so much more about warming up the eye muscles, warming up the hand. Now my computer is indeed doing what I fear it was doing down there. It's been a bit slow, so am I going to survive the demo?
Just dropped a couple of links in the chat for everybody to a couple of websites that have actual screen grabs from movies. They're really helpful, and they're obviously high res because they're taken from like Blu-rays and things like that. So I've put those links in the chat if anybody wants to have a little look, and put them in your bookmarks, because if I come across a website like that, you know, really useful sort of resources for painting or whatever, I always save them to my bookmarks, because 9 9 times out of 10, I'll go on there and I'll think, oh, this is great. And then I'll not bookmark it and forget about it completely. And then I'll kick myself because I won't be able to remember it in 3 or 4 weeks time. So yeah, if you want to look at those ones, stick them in your bookmarks and see if you like them.
Amy, I wonder, I'm struggling here with Photoshop, unfortunately. All those Photoshop haters out there, you can cheer. I wonder if you take over already.
Yeah, sure. No
So
problem.
sorry.
No,
And I wonder if you do some loose studies. Oh, this was going so well in practice. Might just be.
Or do you want me to just go into my thing that I've prepared?
Oh, one sec. Tell you what, everyone. I'll just try it one more time. Apologies for the technical issues, everyone. The machine's being a bit slow. It might just need a little wake up. All right, it's really not liking it. Oh no. Can't even make a new file. Yeah, I tell you what. I know from experience, I might just say let's move over to Amy. And let's do you feel adventurous, Amy? Want to do a few little mini sketchbook studies of these before?
I don't mind. I mean, probably just dive into what I've got, but
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
I mean, we were just going to warn everyone. So
Yeah.
if I'm still sharing right now. Sorry, everyone, you put your nice pictures there. I might come back to this, and if we run over, we might visit those again. I'll have a little play with these sketches. But the idea is just to work super small. Work with, I always the catchphrase, work with brush you think it's a bit, make it a bit bigger than you think you need it. So it's a bit out of control, and you're just going for the big value relationships and composition choices. But if you work on nice thumbnails and do that en masse, you make a nice page of studies, and it really trains and warms up. And over a longer duration, doing these, I don't know, every day or a healthy amount over a long period of time, you get to really understand the choices that are being made and the relationships of high value contrast, low value contrast, positioning, framing, composition. So this is a really useful study, but I will indeed keep to my word and bow out because my machine is a bit busted. So over to Amy. Sorry about that, Amy.
okay.
Bit premature.
Hopefully mine won't die. But so yeah, I'll just share my screen. 1 second. Can everyone in a minute let me know if they can see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, all good.
Cool. And it's got Bob's Burgers on it, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. Cool. Okay, so hi everyone. As you might already know, I'm Amy, and I work in the animation industry as a background artist, visual development artist, and art director. And I just thought I'd put together a few images to show you the sort of thing that I do. So yeah, here's some images that I did for Bob's Burgers, the movie, recently. I did these in 2019. That was my first feature, which was exciting because I do a lot of TV work. If you heard of Moomin Valley, these were some concept art paintings I did for that back in 2020. This was a really fun project because it was just, it wasn't loose at all, and I do a lot of loose painting, and this was nice just to paint some more rendered backgrounds. That was really nice. And oh yeah, this was some work I did on Mr. Bean, the animated series in 2018. This was super fun. This was actually done in Illustrator, Adobe Illustrator. I'm really not great at Illustrator, but I learned it in a month to apply for this job. That's another story. Anyway, that's the Mr. Bean stuff. And then I'll do a lot of my own work in my own time. I like to paint whimsical things from experiences that I've had, people I've met, things I've seen. So this is me in about 40 years' time with my 7 grandcats. I don't plan on having children, so that, yeah, lots of cats will do. And then this was just a piece of concept art I had for an idea of a kid playing in a treehouse, and there's a dinosaur coming together. And this one, I go on a lot of walks, and I recently moved house, and there's just beautiful sunsets over the backyards that I see on my walks. So I wanted to capture that feeling in a little illustration here. And this one is a piece of visual development that I did as part of a personal project about a wacky ant that lives in the desert, as you do. So yeah, I'll just intercept there actually, visual development. So the difference between concept art and visual development is concept art tends to be a standalone piece. So for example, this one, it's just one image and that's it. So if you have an idea and you paint a scene and you don't plan on expanding on that or developing it any further, that is concept art. Whereas visual development, this is visual development because I actually started with this design here. And as you can see, I wasn't happy with the way this looked and it needed developing more. It wasn't wacky enough. So I did some house explorations, different shape languages, relationships of shapes, and came up with a wackier looking house that I was happier with. Same with this saloon here. Wacky's Saloon, she owns a saloon. And yeah, I explored lots of different variations of how the saloon could look and came up with this one. So yeah, visual development's more of a process rather than a single painting. So this one, I'm gonna probably have to follow my cursor because I tried to squeeze a lot of stuff on one page, but it's like a journey map. So at the top left here, this is me in 1999 on our first box computer drawing a stick woman on Crayola, which was kind of like our Photoshop today. And then that was next to that's me in the last 4 years, just drawing on my Cintiq. And then yeah, when I was age 9, my mum and dad saw that, I love to draw. I was always drawing the video covers of the Rugrats. I love the Rugrats, even the barcodes on there, I draw them out. And my mum and dad was like, do you want to go and have some watercolor classes with a local artist? And I was like, yeah, I'd love that. So I went along from the age of 9 to 16, and here's just some watercolor pictures I did over the years there. He taught me a lot. He taught me all my, Barry Tomlinson, he was called. He taught me all the foundations of drawing and painting. So I owe everything I know to him, really. So yeah, then I went to college and what did I do? I did art, graphics, textiles, and English, because English fits in with art. And then I went to uni. I went to Edinburgh School of Art and I did illustration for a few years. And then I left and I couldn't get a job. And it was really hard. I was applying everywhere and everyone wanted experience, but how are you supposed to have experience when you were at uni for 4 years, And I realized I actually didn't know anything about animation. I didn't know anything about visual development, nothing about concept art. All I knew was how to draw and paint. I didn't know how to draw and paint for this specific craft. So I spent a hell of a long time, over about the next year, networking. So, I came across this guy called Chris Oatley, who owns, there he is, just that little guy there. And he owns the Oatley Academy, which is an online art school. He set up it himself. He used to work at Disney as a character artist, and he decided to leave and just set up his own school to teach people like me who wanted to break in to this industry. And I can't recommend him enough because, I've taken multiple courses and mentorships with him since 2016. And 4 months after I started taking classes with him, I got my first gig in animation. And that was because of him and what he was telling me. I learned so much from him. So yeah, I definitely recommend checking out the Oatley Academy. There's some links on Padlet, I think. And yeah, also get yourself out to networking places. I found this amazing networking thing called CTNX, which is held in Los Angeles. And, all the studios, Disney, Pixar, Sony, DreamWorks, even all the little ones as well, they all go. There's workshops with the most amazing artists in the industry. There's opportunities to have interviews, to work at the studios. and loads more. It's just amazing. So definitely check that out. There's also things like Lightbox Expo, Annecy in France. All those links are on Padlet, so check them out. I went there. Oh yeah, I don't know if you can see here, but yeah, this guy here, you might know this guy. That's where I know Dan from. So we met at the Oatley Academy, and then we went to CTNX together, and yeah, it was so cool. Definitely recommend. Also, Schoolism is a great resource to use. I took a great course there recently called Painting with Light and Colour by Dai Tsutsumi and Robert Kondo. Fantastic course. I mean, that one doesn't have the same sort of community feeling as the Oatley Academy. It's more self-led. But if you have the willpower to, you know, make yourself do work, it's a good resource to use. Yeah, what next? So my ultimate goal is to move to LA and work in the industry there. That's difficult for an English person to work over there, for visa reasons, for reasons that, you know, a lot of artists in this industry are bred over in LA to be in this industry, and everything's on their doorstep. So, you know, it's very difficult for us, but I really want it. So one day I do want to move over there and work over there. And yeah, that sort of brings us on to what we're going to be doing today. So I like to go out in the wild and take my iPad and also my real paints and just paint what I see. So these are some from my walks that I've done in the past month or two. There's just this beautiful sunset in the trees that I just had to capture the other day. It was just amazing. You know, I really like painting with physical paints, but having an iPad and Procreate to take out is so convenient because there's no mess, there's no preparation. You just take your pad out and draw. And you know, sometimes, you know, there's different types of plein air that you can do. You can either paint what you see and try and get the exact colors, or try and capture the feeling, you know, because obviously real life is not this color unless you're on drugs. But it felt like, you know, that's how it felt to me. It felt magical. This was actually in Finland when I went last year, as a part of a work thing I was doing. And I decided to go into a forest and paint, and the forests over there are just like, they're so beautiful. They're massive. The sun was hitting all the leaves, and there's all these long shadows. So yeah, I like to push my colors quite a lot. And I also like to work really quickly, as you can see, because when you're outside, the light changes super quickly, which is really annoying because it's like, stop changing. I'm trying to paint you. Yeah, I actually went in the car the other day to Newcastle, and I took my iPad and I was trying to capture what I saw through the window on the way there, and then also on the way back as the sun was setting. And that was really challenging because, you know, the scene is moving, you're moving in a fast car, and the light is moving. So it's, yeah, that was really hard, but it was a good exercise in trying to capture what was there before it changed. And then obviously, you know, there's more photorealistic stuff that I like to paint, but we're not going to do that today because we'd be here till next week. Yeah, and you'd all be asleep. So I was thinking it'd be good if we do a study. Let's have a look. So yeah, basically, if you've all got the pad, is it Padlet thing? You should all have in there a file called reference. Let me just try and get it up.
I can always pop it in the chat if people need me to put it in there for you. But yeah, it's on the Padlet.
Thank you. I'll just open it on mine as well. So hold on. Let's close this down. I'm trying to find my All right. There we go. So if if everyone has got this file here. So basically what we're going to do today is what I like to call, we'll do a quick study of this photograph here, which I found online, which, you know, it's simple, it's got nice light and nice shadows in there. And I'll just, you know, I'll paint how I would approach doing a study of this, and you can follow along if you want. You know, paint at the same time if you want, or just watch. Or draw, you can draw Mickey Mouse or do whatever you want. I don't mind. But yeah, I thought we'd do that first, and then I thought we'd do a color comp using this reference that I've collated. And a color comp is, or a color thumb, sometimes I call it, is like a small thumbnail with the colors and light that I want to my final piece to look like. So basically it's a really rough thumbnail of what I want my background to look like. And I usually do one of these before I do any big painting, because I like a sort of a roadmap. I like to have my colors planned out. I like to know where my light is. I like to know, you know, where all the shadows are going to go roughly before I then draw it up neatly and paint it, you know, in detail. I know a lot of artists will figure this out as they're going in the main painting, and that's fine, but for me it doesn't work. Usually nine times out of 10 it just doesn't work, because I find myself trying to figure out too many things at once. So if I have the color and the light planned out first, then I can focus on, you know, the paint work, the brush strokes, you know, edge control and all that advanced stuff that comes down the line. So let's have a look. If we all just, if you want to join along, just, you know, open a blank canvas here. And oh yeah, I'll just talk about brushes for a second. You can use whatever brush you want for this. This isn't about brushwork or making a pretty picture. This is just about capturing the correct feeling with color and light in a thumbnail. So it doesn't matter if you use a flat Photoshop brush or a fancy textured brush. It really doesn't matter. I'm using a few that I've collected over the years, and a lot of those are, I've put a link in Padlet, and they're part of Kyle T. Webster's Mega Pack. He uses a lot of nice gouache brushes and ink brushes. So I'll be using mainly about 4 different brushes today. So yeah, if everyone just looks at their reference, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this reference and put it on my sheet so you can all see it at the same time. Right, so that's the reference, and I like to work quite zoomed out because otherwise I end up noodling and getting too focused on. See, I can't talk and draw at the same time, Dan, seriously. So
it's cool, don't worry. I've got some questions that I've written down that based on what you've been talking about. So
okay. Do you want me to carry on whilst you ask, or?
Yeah, it's up to you. Like, do you want to set it up and then like I'll just
sure.
over to you?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think I'll just say that when I like to start my pictures with a colour all over first. So this picture we're looking at now is it's warm palette that you can see. There's kind of like a really soft pastely orangey feel, like glow behind everything, or that's what I see. I've not been on drugs. So I like to, you know, get that colour down first. So, you know, get a big brush and just lay down that block colour first. Okay, Dan, do you want to ask questions?
Yeah, sorry, I was just muted. Yeah, like I mean, looking at your stuff, it's interesting because obviously me and Amy know each other, and I guess the first thing that I'm going to ask based on that is just make references, like the importance of just making friends in the industry and like, you know, other artists and people that you're at college with, because you know, you're all on a similar trajectory and you never know like who's going to go off and work at some studio. And like, you know, you talked about networking, but it's not just done with people who are already in the industry. It's done, you know, by making friends with people, because animation's a really small industry, right, Amy?
Oh yeah, it's tiny. It's tiny. Like everyone will work with everyone at some point, probably. Yeah, I've already worked with multiple people multiple times, and I've only been doing this for 7 years. So yeah.
Yeah. So and that's another reason why you want to be nice to people too.
Yeah. Oh, people remember nice people, so be nice.
Yeah, it's important to I forget who it was who was telling me, but they said that they'd always rather work with somebody who they'd always work with somebody who was nice and could like hit their deadlines, but maybe their work wasn't as good as, I don't know, somebody else's, compared to working with like the best painter or the best artist in the industry that turns out to be, you know, really arrogant and full of themselves and horrible to like everybody else and not nice to work with, basically. So it's like, it's important, it's more important, I think, to be a nice person who can be relied on and who can like help other people out in the studio and like be a sort of like can-do type of person rather than be like the best artist in the studio and being a bit sort of like arrogant about it. And I don't know, like, would you agree with that?
Oh God, yeah. I mean, luckily most people I've worked with have been really nice. But there will always be the odd one, and there has been the odd one. And you know, you remember, because there will be a time where you'll need to sort of recommend people for open positions, and you'll remember this artist. You know, you'll think, oh, they were a really good artist, but they're an absolute, you know, pain in the bum. So you don't want to work with them again. You know.
Yeah, and also if you do recommend them, it kind of comes back to you as well, doesn't it? Like, you don't want to recommend somebody that's a pain in the ass to work with, because then they think, oh, well, I'm not going to ask Amy to recommend anybody again because, you know,
Yeah,
he's not a great judge of character or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because whoever I recommend will come back to haunt me. It sort of reflects on you.
Yeah, exactly. And you mentioned about you like to use real paint, right, and get out and get a bit messy with gouache and stuff. And do you think it's important to? We know that digital art is the foundation for the industry. Like, it's all digital these days. It's just for convenience and speed and stuff. But it's important to still work traditionally, I think. And would you agree with that? Like, and how has doing that helped your digital work? I mean, has learning how to paint traditionally helped you be a better digital artist, do you reckon?
Oh God, yeah. I mean, I was because I think I was lucky in a way, because you know, I was a traditional artist way before, for many years before a digital artist, and I'm so glad I learned that way, because I find that you learn the foundations much clearer doing it with physical paint before you go into digital, because it's a different way of thinking. I know it's the same thing at the end of the day, but it is a different process. And if you can do things with physical paint, then it's a breeze doing it digitally. But doing it the opposite way around, I can't imagine how difficult that would be. But no, go on.
No, you'd have to learn to mix paint, right? It's
Oh,
like
yeah,
looking at what you're doing on screen. It's like, you know, you click the swatches palette and you've got
Yeah.
however many million billion colors at your fingertips, right?
And that helps so much. Like knowing how to, like actually knowing, like, oh, I know exactly how to mix that, really helps with color choices. And actually, just talking a bit about color choices here. The way that I choose my colors, I never ever color pick. Never color pick, especially when you're doing a study, because it just defeats the objective. The whole thing with color is it's so deceptive. You know, one color can look at a certain color next to another color, but put it next to another color and it'll look completely different. And it's like, whoa, this is like, what? Who's lying to me? Color is a liar, massive liar. So the way I pick colors is, for example, say I've chosen this color for my tree here, so I'll just click on the palette, and here's the color, and I know there's some shadows in there that are, you know, the darker and the cooler than that green. So going cooler, I'll scroll up here and I'll go a bit darker. And that's how I sort of find, you know, the shadow color. Oh, I've picked the same color. Cool. So yeah, that's how I go about it. Every color relates to another color on the palette. So, you know, you could just say, oh, well, it's there's dark green there, so I'll just go down, and that's not necessarily right because you're not moving the warmth, you know, the temperature of the color. That's kind of going kind of advanced, but that's how my brain works. I'll pick a color and then I'll think about the shadows, you know, are the shadows cooler than that color? Yes. Okay, so I'll go into the cooler colors. Or is it warmer than that color? Right, then I'll go into the warmer. I'll warm that color up by going, you know, into the warmer palette.
Yeah,
I don't know if that makes sense, but that's how
no, yeah, it does, and that's a really interesting point, because it's something that I say to students as well, is that a lot of the pitfalls that I see with especially color digitally painted work is like muddiness, right?
Yeah.
And the way that happens is that, like you just said, it's like, so say you're doing like someone's face, say it's painting, and you pick like a skin tone, and then you think, oh, okay, there's a shadow, so I'm just going to take that original skin tone and I'm just going to make it darker, like not change anything else, just make it a darker version of that original color.
Yeah.
And a lot of people do that, and that's a completely natural mistake to make, because you think, well, it's darker, it's a shadow, right? It's going to just be darker. But shadows have temperature, like you said, like, and especially on skin and things like that, like the way that light enters the face and like bounces around and makes different sort of tones inside the skin that we can't see with our naked eye. But if you I'm sure that you've all done it, like if you paint a face just with flesh tones, it looks like a horrible grey muddy mess, and that's why.
Yeah, exactly. So if you see here in this shadow, there's some cooler areas inside this shadow area here. So if I move this up about there and then lighten the area, I'll see if that's right. And sometimes it's not always the right color, so that's not the right color. It's too cool. So warm it back up again and lighten it. There we go, it's better. You know, and I know that's not even like, that's not the right color, but it's getting the right sort of, it's still the right feeling across. So that'll do, you know, and I'll be happy with that. And then, so once I've got the shadows in, you'll still see that the sky is not orange in the piece. So I'll go back. And as you can see here, I don't know if you've noticed, but I do everything on separate layers because I like to go back and edit. Sometimes I'll do everything on one layer, but for the purpose of this, I will just do it the way that I usually do, which is I work in quite a few layers.
And is that important for production, Amy, as well? So you can go back and edit stuff, yeah?
Yeah, I think that's why I do it, because I'm so used to having, you know, notes from, you know, art directors or whatever going, oh, can you just change this color or can you change this? And it's like, oh, I can't because it's all on one layer. You know, you have to be able to change stuff. So I'm just picking my sky color, so it's quite saturated and warm. I'll just I think I'm gonna get my nice big brush.
Can I just ask why you pick that pink, Amy, or is it just like you pick a random color to start with and it doesn't matter? Or is it because some of it's going to show through and like affect the color of the blue? Is that why you do it?
I picked that color because it's a warm palette overall, and this is a nice sort of warm orangey pastel pink color that I want to shine through. You know, some of this blue here, and I also think that, you know, the benefit of doing things in different layers is that if you cover up too much of that orange, you can always rub some out, and you can get more of your base color showing through. So now this is another mistake people make. So going back to the colors, you want like a nice lighter area here behind the tree. So you'll think, oh, well, it's blue, so I'll just go light blue. But it's actually not. It's more in the orange section here, because if you know, move that up, I'll show you what I mean in a minute. So we'll just paint some of that in. So I'll get some of this in. Like that.
It's like magic. Like I would have picked the lighter blue and then wondered why it didn't look right.
Yeah, but you're an amazing character artist, and you guys don't think about that sort of stuff for as much.
No, it's all flat colours for me. It's like, this is your stuff. I don't worry about this.
See there, I've just picked that colour there, and it's in that warm section. Well, that's warm sector. It's not blue at all. Whereas if you went up here, that's in the blue, but that's not. So see if I've got it about right. Yeah, it's about right.
If people are interested in this sort of stuff, and obviously we all are, like learning colour theory, do you think that's important, Amy? Like I know that James Gurney has a really book called Colour and Light, which is like one of the sort of flagship books that I always recommend to everybody. There's certain art books that everyone should own. So do you think that you necessarily have to sort of learn a lot of colour theory, or do you think it's helpful, or is it more a case of like trial and error with just
Yeah,
popping in.
I think definitely learn it. I mean, I took it's called Painting Drama with Chris Oatley at the Oatley Academy. Oh my god, my eyes were enlightened. I didn't know so much about color until I took that. I mean, everything about color temperature, about the way colors change with certain colors of light. It's just so important. I mean, I don't think about it all the time now because I do it so much, you know, that I don't really think about it anymore. But I think it's really important to know about. So yeah, definitely would recommend.
So we were talking about that pre this meeting, weren't we, Amy? You were saying you've got a lot of this knowledge, but it doesn't sit at the front of your mind as you're painting anymore. It's kind of deep in there, and it kind of comes through as you go. Yeah.
Yeah, it's ingrained a little bit,
Ah.
which is good. It's helpful because it lets me concentrate on the actual idea and feeling and trying to make rather than, oh, what color is this? You know.
But it's an important process to go through. And were you quite technical at the beginning when you were learning that stuff, and then you've become looser, but that theory sits there? Or
yeah, I mean, I was a lot slower thinking about it. Like now, you know, I'll pick my color choices that come a lot quicker now because, you know, I'll know why I'm making a color choice, and just because I paint from life a lot, so I know how light reacts to certain objects in certain conditions. Whereas before I'd be like, oh, so why is this doing this? And it'd take me a while to figure it out. But yeah, it's definitely quicker than it was.
so that theory is one thing, but the application of that over a long time is the point. So the advice is obviously learn theory, but start now. The more you paint, the better you'll be. We were talking about pencil mileage, weren't we, drawing last week?
Yes.
So yeah, just more and more drawing.
I mean, even when you're in the car, you know, like I was the other day, it's so useful just to paint what you see, even if it's out the window. You know, it doesn't have to be perfect. I often find my best paintings are ones I've done super quick because it just captures the sort of energy of the paint better than if I was to spend ages noodling. And that's really annoying because you think, oh, I've just spent ages doing that painting, and actually the one I did in 5 seconds looks much better.
So that was almost like a screen grab in your mind that you took out of the car window, where you saw it for a few seconds before it changed, and you just tried to remember it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That was really a challenge. It was a challenge that because it was very annoying because I like my subject to stay still, and it can't when you're in a car. Yeah, just actually, once I get to this stage here, I like to add the light coming through the trees, and this is my favorite part because it's like magic. It's just you add another layer. Choose for light like this. I'd choose a sort of an orangey yellow light color like that. I'd go onto this up here. You'll see in the layers panel it says normal here. To scroll that down to I know, let's do pin light. So we'll actually change this color to an orangey color. Pin light is magic. Get a soft brush, any brush will do, and just add a little bit.
That is magic.
It's amazing. I'll show you even better magic, right? So make another layer and select overlay. Change this to a lighter yellow rather than orange. And let's use a soft brush again, just to add a little bit more.
And when you say soft brush, Amy, it's kind of like an airbrush, right?
An airbrush, yeah.
Yeah, like one of the default brushes in Photoshop.
Yeah, generic brush. And then to accentuate that even more, that's a long word, isn't it? Accentuate. I didn't even know I knew that word. Get a really, really light, like a bright white color, and then go into a normal layer. Come off the soft airbrush because you don't want to be on that for this. Get any other brush than that, preferably not a soft one. And paint in some bits of light coming through the trees here. Right. This is where I like to use smudge brushes, but I haven't actually got the right one selected today. But I quite like to smudge my brush strokes quite a lot, just so.
But
Yeah,
that's
I don't
something
want
that you
them all too
use. That's something to use sparingly, though, right? Because
Yeah.
I always go a bit crazy with it, and then it just looks like a mess.
Yeah, and also like as you can see here, my tree trunk is nowhere near dark enough. So I'm gonna go back onto the tree trunk, and I'm just gonna, you know, add a little bit. And yeah, I'd call that done. That's, you know, that's good enough. It sort of has the right feeling, and I'd leave it there before I ruin it. So that's how I'd approach a you know, a quick color study.
Amy, sorry, can I just go back for a sec? Oh yeah,
Yeah.
someone's asked what kind of layer did you use for the glow effect? Was it pin light?
Yeah, so pin light. If you go into pin light and use a light-ish orange, sort of like orangey pink there, that's really good for sunlight. I don't always, like, this is just one process of painting light. I mean, you don't always have to use effect layers, but I find that for a quick study it's really helpful because it just saves all that time trying to find the right colors on normal layers when you can just use one layer over everything, and it just gives you that instant bit of glow that you need in a sketch. Are there any more questions before I move on?
Someone's asked, is pin light on Procreate? I think it is, because I
Yes,
think
it
if
Yes.
if I'm right, like it has all the same layer modes as Photoshop, doesn't it?
It
Procreate.
does. Yeah, it does. I love Procreate.
Mm.
I don't do any of my professional work on Procreate because I find it very restrictive with the layers. You know, because I work with a lot of layers, I find Procreate, it gives you a maximum layer amount, and there's never enough. So yeah, if I only do personal work on there really, but it's so handy for taking about on trains and stuff and drawing people, and then they move, and it's like, what? I've had that happen to me twice now. One guy sort of looked at me in disgust and moved, and the other one just sort of went and moved. I was like, sorry.
But but it's interesting because like me and John did an exercise. Well, sorry, John did the exercise last week where he put a reference up. Going back to what you were saying about the car paintings earlier on, like he put a reference up for what was it, like 15 seconds, John, or something, and we had to memorize it and try and draw it. And that is like a painful thing to go through, but at the same time, it's just training your eye so much to just look at stuff and take in detail quickly and be able to do it, because you know light does change when you paint outside and people do move, and you know they don't stay still for us artists, so they it's good to develop that kind of skill, right? And that'll play into a lot of things like gesture drawing and everything.
Yeah, and like getting ideas down quickly. If you say your art director wants you know, says, I don't know, I'll come back to you in an hour or two, can you come up with a couple of moods for this scene? It's really, you know, if you know how to do things quickly and effectively, it's really helpful because you're not sat there panicking like, oh, I've got to do 2 paintings in an hour. So you can just do it really quick. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It can just be blobby, and that's fine. Blobby pictures are the best.
And do you find that that's happens in studios quite a bit? Like it's not, because I think a lot of people have that preconception that when you said stuff like that, like I need, like the art director says, I want to see 2 paintings in an hour.
Yeah.
Instantly you start to panic and you're like, I can't even do 1 painting in 1 hour. But it's interesting, you know, it's important to note that it doesn't mean like finished work. It's all about communication, right? Because the quickest way to communicate an idea with somebody is to be able to draw it, and that's why we always say about like practicing traditional drawing skills, because it's like if you've got a post-it note and you can draw on it and you can scribble an idea and show it to somebody and they get it, then that's what you want, right? So
yeah, because I mean, when I first broke into this industry, I wouldn't show anybody, and I'd be embarrassed to show anyone this because I'd be like, no, it's my sketchbook work, it's not proper painting. And now I actually really appreciate it, and it's really important because people like to see you know, your ideas down quickly. It doesn't matter if it's not perfect, they just want to see the feeling. That what we've just done there, that will communicate the same feeling as a fully rendered painting would, because it's, you know, it's the right colors and it's the right lighting. You don't need anything else. But yeah, if can I go on to my next thing?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I've got a couple of questions if you don't mind.
Go for it. I'll just set it up.
Dee has asked, do you use any composition rules in your
Yes,
painting?
I do. I also learnt those in the Oatley Academy as well on painting drama. And again, I don't think about them anymore because I've hammered the heck out of them. But yeah, no, I I always use, I don't know if you've heard the rule of thirds, you know, the golden rule where you put it in the one of the golden spots. Yeah, I'm not going to go into all that now, but yeah, I've done it so much now that I do know where to put things and why, and how to sort of lead the frame into where the action is. That's a massive monster of its own, but yeah, I do.
Yeah, and someone's asked, what tips would you give to simplify images when painting? I guess it's down to like squinting maybe and things like that,
Yeah,
is it?
squinting, big brushes, so block colors, thinking shapes. I think in shapes. So, for example, this tree. I mean, we could have made this even simpler, to be honest. I mean, you know, say this tree. I mean, I could, if I wanted to, I could have just done that as one big block at first, and then worked the light into it after, just to think, you know, just get all the shapes down first. Some people think like that, and sometimes I do things like that. You know, you can just, excuse my brush marks, but you can just sort of work the light into it, you know. Because a lot of the time I'll start my pictures with shapes. So there'd be that one big tree shape, there'd be a big yellow rectangle for the grass, and then some circular blobs in the background, and then I'd start to work into it. But yeah, I don't do that as much anymore, but when I started out, that's what I tend to do. It helped simplify things in my brain.
Here's one. Here's a hardball for you. Carissa's asked, how do you go about getting the glowing effect with markers or traditional paint? I suppose you're more equipped to answer that about traditional paint.
No, you can do. You can. It's just not as it's not as quick, because you need some. You know, you need to mix. Say if you're using watercolors, for example, if you get some white gouache and mix it with, say, cadmium yellow, a little tiny bit of crimson, or cadmium red, and yeah, I mean, minimal amount of those colors, mostly white, and then put quite a bit of water in it. You could paint like a very wet, quite a wet section of light. Let it paint, let it dry. So then you can. It's very what's the word? Translucent. You can see through it quite a lot, but you can still tell it's there. And then paint another layer where it's not got quite as much water in it. Wait for that to dry, and then paint the thick white light coming through on top with the white opaque paint. So you can do it. You just have to do it. It takes longer because you have to wait for the layers to dry. And same with like say on the background there, you've got like that orange glow over it. You'd mix like a light orangey pink color with a bit of the white gouache, and you'd use quite a bit of water and just do like one brush stroke across it and wait for it to dry. And then again, if you need to, it just sort of puts that sort of translucent layer on top of it, like you get with a bit of glow or haze.
Cool.
Markers, I don't know. I don't use markers. Yeah, you have to get some fancy opaque markers, I suppose. There must be those out there. But yeah, there'll be a way to do it in markers. So yeah, so next one you'll see on the reference sheet here. I thought we'd come up with, so I've got like this idea in my head, and before we start, there's always like a story or a feeling that I want to convey before I start going to make a piece of concept art. I don't just think, oh, I want to draw a piece of concept art without any goal in mind, because, you know, you need to know what you're trying to convey first. So I was thinking of, since we've been drawing trees, I thought I'd gather all this reference, you know, with trees. But in my reference here, we've got this really nice sunset light, which we kind of had in the study we just done. So I thought I'd carry that on. But also, I also wanted to make a piece where it's sort of adventurous wonder. Like we've just come upon, an area of forest, and it's a warm palette, you know, kind of a bit whimsical, a bit magical. You want to go in there. That's the sort of feeling that I want to go for. And I really liked, you know, I was just researching trees and I really loved these shapes of trees. I love chunky trees. I don't know what it is. I paint a lot of trees. I've got a problem. But there's also this artist called Fernando, I don't know how you say it, Peck, on Instagram, who did really nice work on Ron's Gone Wrong. If you've not seen that film, go and see it. It is really good. And yeah, I really liked his shape language of trees. And, you know, we won't be using the exact shape language, but I just wanted to put that here because I just love the shape of his trees. And maybe I'll use some of the similar shapes in the background in our piece that we're going to do. So if you know, all of you, if you can have the reference up on your screen, I'm going to put the reference on my other screen that you can't see, so I can see it.
And we were interested in seeing what people will come up with, aren't we, Amy? So
Yeah,
that everyone could take a stab at this.
Yeah, I mean, you can either all copy along what I'm doing, or you know, build your own. It doesn't matter. I'll paint it on the same page as this. So I'll just go with what I'm doing. If anyone has any questions, you know, shoot. Feel free to paint your own piece of concept art using that reference. And if you want, you don't have to paint something that's, you know, warm and adventurous. You can come up with a different feeling if you want. But I just thought, you know, it might be easier if we all stick to the same one. But do what you want, it's fine. I just want to, and yeah, this is how I come up with a color comp. So this would be like the first thumbnail before I'd go into a full-on painting, so I can get the sort of feeling of what I'm going to paint and whether I like it or not. Because a lot of the time, before I started doing color comps, you know, I'd do these thinking, you know, as in I'd be going into the actual painting straight away, and I'd be fiddling around for ages and it didn't work. So 5 hours later, I'd be like, well, I've just wasted 5 hours of my life. And now it's like, well, you can just do these really quick comps. And if you don't like it, you know, who cares if you've wasted 20 minutes, half an hour? Doesn't matter. It's better than wasting 5 hours.
So would you say that they're kind of like the equivalent of like a quick thumbnail sketch or something for like a character designer?
Yeah. Like it's something you'd do on a back of a bus ticket or something, you know, just to get like shape language and the general roadmap of where you're going.
So these are not usually shared with the team or the production, Amy. They're more for you to work out.
Well, I do this for my personal work. I have done this on color scripts before for the Unstoppable Yellow Yeti, which isn't out yet on Disney, but that should be coming out in the next year. I did a lot of color scripts there for them, and sometimes a lot of the time what I had in mind wasn't working on the page, so for the color script. So I'd do a few thumbs and I'd experiment with those first, and then I'd pass it to the art director and say, you know, which one of these do you like, or do you like any of them? You pass them back and you'd be like, I like this one. Like, right, run with that one. Because otherwise, if I hadn't done that and I'd gone ahead with one we both didn't like, I'd have to redo the whole thing, and that'd take like an extra day, and ain't nobody got time for that in animation. So never enough time. So,
time is money.
It is. And like, oh, by the way, sometimes I do like to draw line work before I paint, sometimes not. In studies, like simple studies like the one we just did, I don't generally draw first, I just paint. But in concept art and things that I want to, ideas of my own, I do tend to sketch first. And I like to sketch with like sort of a dark brown colour. I don't know why, I just don't like black. So,
I find that black's too harsh.
It is. I don't know what it is. It's just not nice. We actually, when I was in college, my art teacher, Miss Elliott, she was a legend. She had a sign on her door saying no black card allowed, because she hated black. Said, all right, I'll use pink then. She said, no pink either. I hate pink. So great, fine.
Yeah, I sometimes just sketch with a blue crayon or anything that isn't too dark, because then it's kind of like, I don't know, it's less intimidating sometimes. I mean, and I'm talking traditionally, not digitally. But
oh yeah, for sure. You know what? I used to sketch with pencil, but I don't anymore. I much prefer sketching with a biro, because I don't know, I like the way it feels on paper better. By the way, here I'm just I really like the reference in the the shapes of the trees, and I would just have this idea of this tree being in the foreground, and it's kind of like, really nice sort of big branches here reaching in. And I'll sketch really loosely, it doesn't have to be, again, this is a comp, it's not, you just want to get the general layout right, and the colors. It doesn't matter about anything else. You can change things in the paint if you don't like the pencil work, which is always a good thing. I also would like, I really like, in some of this reference, you can see like a little river or a brook, and I really like the idea of having a bit of water in here, just because of the way that it reflects light. Let's have a look.
Have you do you have a favorite project, Amy, that you've worked on? I know that it's difficult to choose sometimes, or is there one that stands out, like whether it be because of the work or just like it was a really nice experience because of the people or anything like that?
Yeah, I think I have two actually. One of them is Mr. Bean, because the team was just so lovely, and it was just such a good experience for me. And we got to meet Rowan Atkinson, which was really fun. And Moomin Valley, because it was a one-off. It was a one-off that we usually in animation, it's just so go all the time. There's no room for rest. There's no rest at all. There's always too much work, not enough time. It's just the way it is. And with that, it was like so laid back. We had so much longer than on other productions to paint the pieces of concept art, or we could just like sit back and enjoy it rather than panic and then go on to the next one and panic again. And that was lovely. And the people were also really nice.
Yeah, it's just a shame that for an art-based job, it's like you don't get time to well, you do enjoy it, but a lot of the times it's like art, because art takes time to develop, right? And it turns it into a bit of like a conveyor belt sometime of like, all these assets that need doing, all these paintings that need making, and it's like it must be so nice to just have a project like that where you're not beholden to like a really tight schedule, and you can just actually spend some time, and I'm sure that like reflects itself in the work, right, in the painting.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't know about you, but I can't work on anything that I'm not interested in. I just can't. Like my hand doesn't work. My art doesn't come out right. Like I've turned down loads of jobs just because I don't like the sound of, or the look of the thing that they want me to work on, and I don't want to do a bad job. If I'm going to work on something, I'm going to do my best work. I don't want to work on it just, if I have to work on it and I need the money, fine, I'll do it. But if I have a choice and I don't like it, and I know that someone else do a better job, I won't take it. Because I've been in a job before for like a year and I hated it. And it's like, oh, okay. Well, at least I'm not cleaning toilets.
Yeah, and it's difficult because especially if you're contracted on for a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
Well, I had an experience like that as well, and it turned into a nightmare in the end. And as luck would have it, it was like my first proper big job, and it almost turned me off to the whole industry, if I'm completely honest. So, it's important to also note that you've been doing this for quite a while now, and you're in the position to be able to turn some jobs down. So
yeah, it's nice.
But obviously, like when you're first starting out, and I was the same, and I'm sure that you were, it's like you just take whatever you can get to get your foot in the door, so to speak, right?
Yeah, oh God, yeah, I'd take anything at all. I even before I got into the animation industry, I even accepted a job at a branding agency, and I'm not an animator, I don't know how to animate, and they wanted me to do these animated videos, and I was like, yeah, I'll do that, it's fine. I just wanted some experience, and so I remember sitting up all night on YouTube how to animate in what was it, After Effects. And
in like 12 hours or less.
Oh yeah, I was knackered, and I was just like, yeah, I can make this car move for you, no problem.
But that's an important point though, because you mentioned earlier on, about learning Illustrator for Bean, right?
Oh God, yeah, right. So that's the story. So basically, I think I'd say to anyone, kind of fake it till you make it is real, because no one actually really knows what they're doing at the end of the day. Not really. I don't think. You know, you might know a bit.
I love how you're keeping it real today.
It's so
great.
true.
Yeah,
It's so true.
Unfiltered. I love it.
But like, you know, I mean, I had just come out of a year and a half painting backgrounds on Pinkalicious, which, you know, it was my very first long form gig, and it was really nice. But I was ready for a different challenge and different people, and I'd have done anything to get a different opportunity, you know. So I saw, you know, I was looking for jobs, and I saw that Mr. Bean was looking for new artists to be designers. So I applied to be a designer, and I got an interview. And they said to me, "We'd like to test you for an art director if you'd like that." And I said, "Oh right, yeah, sure, great, no problem." Then they said, "How are you with Illustrator?" As in Adobe Illustrator. I said, "Oh, yeah, fluent." I never even opened it. And they said, "Oh, good, because we'll send you a test and it's in Illustrator. The whole show's drawn in Illustrator." I said, "That's no problem. Fine, great. So we'll need it within the week." So that's fine. So I just sort of pressed stop, and I was like, "Oh God, what do I do?" So I learned. I spent 4 hours watching YouTube videos on how to use Illustrator. I thought this is not going to work, but it did. I you know, I did my best, and I got the job eventually. I don't know how that happened, but I did. So then I had a month in between jobs. So I spent that month learning the hell out of Illustrator. Yeah, I was still learning when I went on the job, you know, when I started, but it was worth it. I don't know how to use it now. I forgot, completely forgot.
And you're art director.
Yeah, and I didn't know what I was doing.
You're like head honcho, and it's like your secret shame and nobody knows. Well, we all know now, don't we? But
Yeah, it's great. I was
we won't
really
tell
like,
anyone, don't worry.
"Oh, don't worry, it's fine, it's out there." I told the director when I left.
What, you're like, "Oh, by the way,
I didn't know how to use it. Yeah. He was like, "You what?" But yeah, no, I mean, if it's something like that, and you know, you can, you know, you'd be able to, if you think you'd be able to learn it in a realistic amount of time, you know, go for it. But yeah, if it's something like Blender or maybe Maya, don't say you can do it, because that's going to take quite a while to learn.
Yeah, know your limits, right? Don't
Yeah.
don't suddenly turn around and say like, "Oh yeah, I've rigged loads of things and I can use ZBrush like in my sleep," and then find out that you can't, and then that's when you're in real trouble, right?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, just to let people know what I'm doing here, I'm just sort of blocking in. I like to use that phrase, blocking in. I like to block in my main shapes, you know, with block colors first, before I start getting any light and shadow anywhere. Just for a base, so I know where things are going. So I'm imagining these, like, I don't know, there's going to be some background trees here, that have receded into the distance, and then you know, I'm imagining there's going to be sun coming through here with some leaves, and there's going to be a river here, and there's loads of light that's going to be coming through these trees, kind of like we did in the study. But I like to leave that, you know, the effects layers with the light till the very last moment, because it sort of pushes you to. It forces you to push the work as close as you want to get it before you add those lights on at the end, because it's kind of like a finishing touch rather than a crutch, if you know what I mean. That wasn't supposed to rhyme. But
yeah, it's like the icing on the cake, right?
Yeah,
But
exactly.
you need the cake to be solid before you put the icing on, otherwise the icing's just going to fall off.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what I meant.
Nice cake analogy for you there. James has asked what did Rowan Atkinson think of your Mr. Bean work, and was he nice, by the way? Was he nice to?
Oh, yeah, you know what? He's very, very shy. Incredibly shy, actually. He doesn't say much. He came to the rap party. No one knew he was going to come. He just turned up, which was really cool, because me and two other guys, what we did was we had a jam like the week before. So I play guitar, and there was another guitar player, a singer, and then the bass player, and we just had a jam outside work. And you know, I said to them, "Wouldn't it be cool if we played at the rap party?" And said, "Yeah, let's play at the rap party." So we did, we didn't practice, but we did. Didn't sound that bad. And when Rowan turned up, we were playing for Rowan, which was kind of cool. No pressure. Yeah. By the way, yeah, I just want to get some. I want to get some moss, like green moss, on this tree, and this is where the color thing comes. Because usually people be like, "Oh, green moss, I'll go into this green area." No, don't do that. So pick the tree. We know that the moss is going to be cooler than the warm tree branch, so we'll go a little bit warmer, a little bit saturated, a little bit lighter, and we'll try that first. So 1 minute. Let's have a look. Yeah, so turn it off a minute. So if the moss is like here, we want it to read as green. So for example, let's say if we had a white piece of paper and we put this down, you wouldn't necessarily say it's green or as green as it looks on this tree. But I know that it'll read as green because I painted too many trees.
And that goes back to what you were saying earlier on about how colours behave when they're put next to a neighbouring colour, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's all about colour relationships rather than the actual colour it is. So, for example, you know that that viral sensation thing that was going around years ago on Facebook. What colour is the dress? Is it blue and black or
Oh God, yeah.
white? You know, that one. And it was like, it's completely subjective because it was put in. There were 2 pictures taken in different light sources next to different coloured things, and it doesn't. You know, someone says to you, you know, what colour is this dress? Well, what light are you showing it me in? What's it next to? I don't know what colour the dress is, really. Does anyone know what colour anything is, really? Yeah, it's so subjective, and I think it's basically, you know, what's the colour next to. It's all about the relationship between the colours.
Yeah, and one thing I learned when I started to, I mean, I don't know as much as you do, but when I started to look into, you know, colour and light in that James Gunny book, is the amount of difference it can make, you know, the type of light it is, like, you know, a street lamp versus the sun versus, like, you know, a luminous bulb, like a you know, a street light versus like a luminous like strip light versus
Yeah.
you know, and it's amazing how much difference it makes. And you think like, well, a light's a light, right? I'm just going to paint it all the same, doesn't matter. But little details like that are what help make things look so much more realistic, aren't they?
Oh yeah, I think it's really, that's why it's really important to draw from life as well, because it's, you know, you need to know how light's going to behave on certain objects, and you know, like on glass or on piece of paper or on a curtain. It, you know, it reacts differently to everything. So if you're drawing from life, you sort of, you know, you're making a memory of, okay, so this color will do that on that material, and that'll do that on that material. So eventually you can come up with ideas and concepts without having to think as much as you would, you know, you'd just be guessing otherwise if you've not seen it in real life before, you know.
And then you waste all that time, like you were talking about, if you're in a studio and you're like, oh, the art director asks you to paint something under a certain light condition, and you don't know. It's like you're going to spend a lot of time fumbling around and messing it up, right?
Yeah, for sure. By the way, this is this is kind of fun because it's like, I guess I'm not used to anyone seeing me struggle, because I struggled quite a few times, you know, quite a lot in colour comps. Some of them will turn out nice, some of them will turn out like, what the hell is that? But you know, I guess it's just a real process. I don't know how you are in yours, Dan, but I know that everything I draw isn't good. A lot of things I draw is really, really, really bad.
Oh yeah, I mean, we're all, as artists, it's like the contract you sign when you become an artist is that you can never like your own work, right? Or you can certainly never draw on demand. Or like I did a workshop at the weekend at a festival in Lowestoft, and you know, I was drawing live in front of people on paper, which I don't do very often. Yeah. And you know, some of them I was really happy with, but some of them I was drawing them, and as I was doing it, I was like, oh my God, this is so terrible. And these people are like watching me and trying to follow along with what I'm doing. And I think you've just got to accept the fact that, you know, there's so many factors that can affect how you draw and paint every day. It's like you know, you might not be feeling it, or you might just be having a bad day. And some days you can't paint for anything or draw for anything. And some days you can, everything you touch looks amazing. So it's like we're all human beings at the end of the day, right? I think that's the most important thing to remember.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I wish I could draw all the time, like really well, but I just can't. So at this point, this is where I'd like to get some of the glow coming through before I paint anything else. So about there. Get the pin light on again. I love this pin light, and I just came across the pin light by chance because I put the blending mode on the wrong blending. Well, I thought it was the wrong blending mode. I was like, oh wait, I like that. I was like, yeah, happy accident. A little bit overlay, and then
Just while Amy's doing that, does anybody have any questions that they want to drop in the chat, and I'll relay them to Amy as she's going along. Just in the meantime, Amy, I noticed that when you were doing your intro, you had like some of your personal projects and things. And do you think it's important to have that? And also, like, follow up question, like, how much of your own life makes it into those projects? Because I know that you like cats and stuff. So do you put that into your work a lot of the time? And
yeah, I think it's really important to have personal projects, just because, well, for your portfolio as well, because a lot of the time when you're working on an animated series, you can't show your work for years because you're under NDA. And so if you want to get hired, you know, you've got nothing to show. So it's really important to keep making your work to be put out there so people can see it. And also it's just, you learn as you're doing things. So if you're doing your own projects more, you know, you're learning more, and you're doing projects that you want to do, you know, whereas a lot of time in an animated show, you're doing stuff that you have to do and not necessarily want to do. So yeah, I really like painting cats, and I like painting trees. So I paint them as much as I can.
Amy, Clementine's asking how you get the pin light effect. Could we just hang on the drop down menu to show that for a moment?
In this?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you got this normal effect here. And I've just gone onto the layer where my pin light is. If you literally drop down here and you pick pin light, that'll do it. There's loads of these different effects you can use. I just really like pin light because I like how the orange reacts with the other colors.
And that goes above, yeah. Someone's asking, does it go above?
Yeah, it goes above. In this case, yeah, because I want it to go over. I want it to go over and spill over the branches, but it can go above, below, just wherever you want the color below to be affected. Yeah, put it wherever you want, but I have put it above in mine. I think I often, in my comps as well, I often realize that, this tree needs, because like if you look in the reference, I took a photograph of a tree with some rim light around it on one of my walks, and I realized this would be quite nice with maybe if I started to paint a bit of rim light on the, around some of the branches. And sometimes I think, nah, it doesn't look good, so I'll just go back and then maybe put in a bit more.
So just ask Clementine, Karen, do you want to just answer the question, Clementine? You go to the layer blending mode drop down menu, which is above the layers. And so whichever layer you're on, it will change that layer to that. I'll maybe put a link in the chat to YouTube process.
Molly's asked, what studio do you really want to work for in the future, Amy?
What are the shows?
No, sorry. What studio do you really want to work for in the future?
Disney.
Is that TV or feature?
Both, but I really want to work at feature at some point. At the minute, I've got a lot of experience in TV. I find that's generally how it goes. You know, when you've got, I started off having experience with TV, and then once you have experience in TV, another TV show comes along and goes, hey, can you work on our TV show? Yeah. And then you get, oh, can you work on ours? So in my personal work, I'm trying to do a lot more stuff that, like concept art, that's much more painterly, you know, lots of different lighting situations that features look for, rather than flat images that you generally see in TV.
Marley says, isn't Bob's Burgers technically owned by Disney now? It's like, yeah, I think Disney technically owns everything. So like, haven't you technically worked with Disney? I mean, you can just take that off the list now, right?
yeah, I have. And I've also, I've worked with Disney on a show called The Unstoppable Yellow Yeti. But the thing is, it's not, it is a Disney show, but it's not Disney. It's a vendor studio, and that's fine. It's like they outsource. They get all these big studios get little studios around the world to do work for them because it's cheaper for them, and it's fine. It's just that I know it's not Disney. It's not Disney. I want to be in the actual building, in the Disney building. I know one day it'll happen, but yeah, something happened recently, and do you want me to talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, if you're comfortable talking about it, you don't have to, but I mean, I think that it'd be helpful if people, because it's always helpful when people hear about the struggles that us professionals have at the same time. Like, it's not just a case of like, you get into a studio and then it's just happy days forever. Like, we all still have things like this happen. So yeah, go on, definitely.
Okay, cool. So, so basically I've been applying to Disney for 7 years now. And I never got a response. I never got an interview, but I did in March, just gone, and it was to work on the Big City Greens movie musical as a background painter. And I've never had an interview that went as well, ever. I mean, it just flowed and flowed. We had to cut it short. It was going that well. They even said, you are a perfect fit for our show. So I was like, wow, great. I must have got this job, So anyway, they said, we'll let you know soon. So 2 weeks went and I hadn't heard anything. So I sent a follow-up email. I waited 4 days and then I got a reply saying, oh, sorry, it's just, it's turned into quite the slow process, but we'll get back to you ASAP. I was like, okay, never mind, I'll wait for a bit longer. So 6 more weeks, so 8 weeks in total, still nothing. And then the Netflix layoffs happened, and I just thought, I knew straight then, I thought, that's my job gone. Because a lot of the artists that were laid off in Netflix are Disney artists, ex-Disney artists. So I was right. Shortly after, I did get an email saying they filled all the positions now, and I was so upset. Like, I'd turned down other work for them. I've been trying for 7 years, and I finally got my dream interview. It sounded like I got it, and then nothing. And I was just devastated. I just felt like my whole world had crashed. I was really down for about a month, so down, and I just didn't feel like painting or drawing. And when I did, nothing had come out because I was just so upset. And I just think from that, I've learned that, you've got to want other stuff as well. You can't just want one thing. You can't put all your eggs in one basket, because I haven't been enjoying the journey, because I've been killing myself by working long hours at work, coming home, doing mentorships in my own time, plus doing my own work for years, all to get to Disney, because Disney's been this thing in my head that's like, oh, it's the ultimate thing, it's going to make me happy. And then suddenly I don't get it and everything goes to crap, So I'm trying to now focus on the journey and trying to want other things as well. But, I still do want to work at Disney, but I'm trying to want other things too. So I think what I'm trying to say is, do not put all your eggs in one basket, because you'll end up in a mess.
Yeah, and it's thanks for sharing that, because that's like a real personal. I know that's a personal thing for you, and you're really upset by it because obviously like we're mates and everything. And I think it's important to take away from that also that a lot of it is luck, and I don't mean that in a horrible, crappy way. I mean in terms of like, it's a lot of it is timing as well. Like the whole Netflix thing, right? It's like if the Netflix layoff hadn't happened, you probably would have got the job, And sometimes it can work in your favor. Like someone can recommend you for a job and it just comes out of nowhere, right? So it's like, you're going to end up working for Disney one day, and it'll probably come around not through an interview. It'll probably come around through like somebody recommending you or seeing your work online. Like when because I worked for Disney TV for a little tiny bit, and that was just pure happenstance. Like they saw my work on Instagram
Yeah.
and that was it, and I've applied to them through the interview process before and not even gotten a call back. So just because that one door closes through the interview process doesn't mean that oh, you're never going to work for that company ever again.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, because like what we were saying earlier, the industry is so small, and if you're nice to people, and so another reason to do that, and they remember you as being really nice and doing great work, they might just say, oh yeah, Amy, she's great, I worked with her on this show, like she'd be really cool for this, and then that's how you can sort of get in another way. So it's important to remember that sort of stuff as well, right?
For sure. Definitely, yeah. I mean, I've had a few, like for example, I got that Moomins job because the guy I art directed with, called Stephen Soul, he recommended me to someone who was asking if he knew anyone who would be a good fit to work on Moomin Valley, and he said me, and that's when they gave me a call. And it was just things like that. If I'd been a horrible person to work with, he wouldn't have recommended me. But yeah, as you can see, this is, it's not a work of art, but it's a thumbnail of, it gets across the feeling of, it's kind of like, oh, wondrous adventure. You come across this forest, you want to go in there. It's nice, warm light. So then I'd go ahead and I'd draw up this background properly with proper line work, paint it properly and nicely with those colors and that lighting. It's a thumbnail of, this is how I want the piece to look and to feel. I don't know, I'm going to experiment. Maybe we'll get some shadows from those trees on the ground. Let's have a look. Might not look good, but we'll see.
I'm not gonna lie, Amy, I'm a little bit worried that you haven't saved your work so far.
Oh yeah. So yeah, remember to save your work, people.
Just because I want to see this on the Padlet afterwards, and I don't want anything to happen to it, right?
Yeah. I was going to say, Amy, we could check on the Padlet in the next 5 or so minutes.
Okay.
It'd be nice for everyone to comment on yours, and you to see everyone else's work on the Padlet.
Yeah.
Get some really nice work going up so far.
That'd be great.
Just on that Disney job, Amy, obviously you feel different now to when it first fell apart. And I think you've been working so hard doing, overworking during the day and then also doing mentorships at night.
Yeah.
Do you think down the line there's that's only quite a negative take on that, but you clearly are. No, I mean like, you're looking back and juggling up, weighing up what's happened to you during the journey.
Yeah.
Do you think you'll look back and down the line and think, well, actually, of course, I've got these skills that I love and they bring so much to my life, and you've got skills that I think everyone in the audience would be massively jealous of and can't wait to have the journey you've had. But do you think it's just quite a raw emotion at the moment, and it's
it's still quite raw. I mean, it's nowhere near as raw as it was. I mean, I was bitterly hurt.
But it happens, but that's we like that. Dan and I kind of share in these sessions the realities of this, and I think that's more useful than some kind of glossy version that we could half sell. But I'm just thinking of people in the audience that are about to go on big, long career journeys, learning journeys, even more so, and it's a worthwhile learning journey, isn't it? I mean, you love the skills you have now,
Yeah. I'm really thankful for all the hours that they've put in. It's been so worth it. Obviously, I think I should have learned to enjoy my life more at the same time. Do play as well as work. It's all about balancing it. I'm not good at that, but no, it's been so worth it, because if I hadn't have gone ahead and gone into looking into all these mentorships and learning about color theory and light and everything else, I wouldn't know what I'm doing. Like, I don't fully know what I'm doing, but I know enough that I can make something that I have in my mind and it comes out how I want it to.
Yeah. So someone else in the chat might be linked. Elle asks, how can I stop overthinking as much when I'm doing my art? That it slows me down, and sometimes give up. Yeah. Have you ever gone through a process of kind of questioning your process, your artwork, the outcomes, or do you have any tips for if someone is overthinking work and maybe not finishing work?
Yeah. So with me, I mean, I find that I do overthink quite a lot, and I think What was the question again? What was the specific question again? So I answered the right question.
If you are maybe stopping from completing artwork because you're overthinking it,
Yeah.
to feel that progression in your work.
I'd just say if you get to that point, I'd say just go out and paint something else. So for me, if I like when I was trying to come out of that block I had for the past couple of weeks, I'd go out and I'd just paint a tree. I like trees. But I'd literally just go out and paint a tree. I'd paint a really simple tree and then I'd walk somewhere else, paint something else. I'd take some pictures, bring them home, paint some from the pictures. And, really loose, not perfect, just really loose. And it unlocks something in you, it just sort of gets you painting and gets the brush on the paper. You don't really have to think about it. Just, don't paint it with the intent to show anyone, just paint it. And I find that it stops you from overthinking because it's getting you painting. So once the brush is on the paper, you're halfway there then.
Yeah, and something about traditional media, isn't there? I was going to ask you, we were talking about limitations. One was time. You're doing the quick studies in the car.
Yeah.
So the time limit reduced.
Yeah.
Is the mixing paint in real life? It's the opposite, isn't it? Slower. You kind of have to really think about it to get it right. And it's final when you make that mark. It's final. Do you find that a completely different mindset and therefore two different ends of the spectrum, and that keeps you challenged?
Yeah, I mean, I guess one thing I do miss with physical paint is that you haven't got a back button. But it does force you to be more decisive. So instead of just putting any mark down anywhere, you're going to think, right, do I really want to put this there? And is that the right colour? Which is also a really good exercise because, I guess everyone always wants to pick the right colour first time. But when you actually have, you're painting it in paint, physical paint, put it down and it's wrong, you've got to either paint over it or go with it and sort of make something in relation to that colour you've just chosen. Yeah,
and that's something I quite like doing digitally to force, if you paint it wrong, you have to paint back over it. Yeah. So I don't know, I made that answer Elle's question slightly. Yeah, I think it's sort of mental, personal games you have to play with yourself. And maybe one of those is make marks which are final. And then you can't overthink, you can't have multiple layers, and you can't undo. Maybe that clarity of thought just happens. Yeah. I think there's a few different ways to get yourself out of any ruts. I'm just messing now. Sorry, I'm just. Yeah. Could we, if you are messing, is it alright if you save that, Amy, and put it on Padlet as a JPEG? Sure. And then it will mean you can get to look at the Padlet and see what everyone's doing. That's really nice. Great. That'd be awesome. Especially use of this pin light layer. It's going down well.
I just got a quick question. Well, two really quick ones you guys do that while you're chatting. Mateus has asked, do you have any tips on composition? I know we talked about it earlier on. I mean, I would always recommend books like Framed Ink to people.
Yeah. Also, I have a good book I can recommend. And just now when you've asked me, I've forgotten what it's called. 1 second, I'll have a look in my... Hold on, I'll have a look.
And also, and while you're doing that, Amy, just John Lily's asked about the session being recorded and so that people can watch it back. And I know that somebody else had asked that question earlier in the chat, so I can't remember what we discussed earlier on before we went live about the recordings.
Well, you say it's okay.
You're muted, John.
Oh dear. Sorry, Amy, you go. You sure you go?
Yeah, sure. So this book is called Vision by Hans Backer. Colour and composition for film. I definitely recommend this book. It's really, really good. Lots of stuff to do with, I don't know what you can see here, but there's loads to do with different compositions and ways to lay out your work for different story points. Yeah, definitely. Even things like this,
He was production designer at Disney on Mulan, wasn't he?
Yes, he was. Yeah, I definitely recommend that book. I've got a lot of books, which I've also recently learned that these books are really heavy and very good for flower pressing. Also.
Oh yeah, it's your new hobby, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Yeah, I thought I need to learn to like other stuff too, so I've started to flower press, which is fun when it goes right.
I'm going to put my email in the chat for everyone. So anyone who's external to NUA, you should get a link because you've signed up, and that just might take about a week until they send that to you. But if anyone's stuck and wants that, just email me. Any students who maybe have gone through a direct Zoom link, you might not necessarily get that. So you can email me and I'll get the outreach team to send me the YouTube video of this recording and any of the 3 or 2 previous ones. So it's 3 in total. Great stuff.
Great.
Yeah, some really nice stuff on the Padlet, everyone. Thank you for
I'll have a
sharing.
look.
Really
I'll have a
cool.
look. Let's have a look.
And if you haven't put your name, you can go back in and edit, and instead of it being anonymous. And if everyone takes a moment to go and show some love to everyone else's work, some really, really interesting takes, and I hope there's been some really
nice
useful.
stuff on here.
Mm.
Lovely stuff.
Is there any projects you're a bit jealous of having not worked on, however, historical or contemporary, films, TV shows?
Oh yeah, I really wanted to work on Amphibia, Disney's Amphibia. What else I want to work on? Oh my gosh. Is it Michael's versus the Machines? I forgot what it's called.
Mitchell's
Mitchell's, that's the one. I've really wanted to work on that. Oh my god, imagine working on that. I love things that look not so plasticky and rendered. I like things that look more like the art of books. They look like moving pieces of art rather than computer generated plastic blobs. It's a shame because all the artwork that goes into creating the thing, like behind the films, it just gets lost sometimes, I feel, when it's rendered too much.
Yeah, I much prefer to see films that actually look like Klaus.
Like
a moving concept art book, right? I mean, and to a degree, like Arcane, and we talked about that a lot of times. But Marley said about they love Amphibia too, and I remember, didn't you do? I put in the chat, like, you did some Amphibia style backgrounds, didn't you? Like as an exercise, is that right?
I did.
And that's a good thing to talk about, because loving a show like that and then making your own painting but in the style of a show is a really good thing for your portfolio.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I'd say studios much prefer to see your own work, your own unique style of work, but I find it's really helpful to try and learn how a studio approaches a certain show style, for sure. By the way, sometimes what I like to do, I don't know, sometimes I like to just experiment a bit further after completing a little comp. So I'll get a colour, maybe, and I'll just experiment. So I'm trying a multiply layer. 1 second. Change the colour of that. So, 1 second. Sometimes I'll just put it over, and then I'll go in and, just add a little tiny bit more contrast, and wrong brush. Yeah, a little bit more contrast, and for the light that comes through, Sometimes I'll do that, and when I'm doing these comps, I'll make a log, a mental log of and a physical note of the colors I've used and what on what blending mode. So then when I go back to doing the actual painting, full on painting, I'll know what layers and colors to use. I'm just trying to find I've just noticed that I've saved my brushes as pen tools only and not erasers, which is very annoying.
Can I just ask, did you use a mask just then, Amy? I wasn't seeing what you were doing. Have you used a mask on anything?
I didn't know. I mean, I do use masks sometimes, but in comps I tend not to. I've just used a normal multiply layer with a colour.
Okay. Yeah, and it's and someone else has said that looks more spooky, whereas the first one looked more hopeful. And it's like, it's amazing how quickly you can change the mood of something, right, just by doing that.
Exactly, yeah. So, I mean, this has definitely changed the mood, which, might not be something I want for that specific feeling. And if that's the case, I'll often go and I'll just go and have a play with it again. So I'll go into, you know, for example, I'll go into the hue saturation and experiment with. Let's have a look. I like to push things till they break, by the way, as you noticed.
Just thinking this could be a good exercise. I was asking, you know, when you're overthinking a piece of work, sometimes when you've got one canvas and you're trying to make that perfect piece of work, it can be an issue. Maybe set your stall out that you're going to make a thumbnail and then you're going to duplicate it and try 4 different emotions through color and light. And I know, you know, it's personal to the individual, the sort of personal artistic ruts or block you're in. But I think try to be creative with process as much as the art itself. Is super important to those of us who are certainly learning our trade as we go. Yeah.
Amy, am I right in thinking that on the Tonko House Schoolism course, there's an exercise where you do, it's the same scene, but you paint it like a bit similar like this, and it's different times of the day, like sunny one and an overcast one and a dark, and like then at night time. And
I'm glad you brought that up, actually, because I forgot.
Yeah, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so basically, say if I was painting a comp and I knew that I was going to have to paint the same scene in multiple different lighting setups or times of day, I wouldn't paint it like this. I have multiple processes. This is just if it's for a personal piece of art that I know I'm going to paint one picture of. If I was going to paint this scene in say a misty night and this sunrise, what I'd do is I'd paint this scene in neutral diffuse lighting. So basically in day, no direct sunlight, just like a global light, no harsh shadows, no lighting effects, very plain. And then I'd paint in the I'd change the scene with effects layers and then paint over those. So then I can then delete those later to create the new mood by using more effects layers on top of the plain base we've already made. But that's what they cover in that Tonko House course. It's really, really helpful. But yeah, if I'm just doing it like a one-off like this, I'm just going to paint it straight on like this and not going to bother doing the neutral diffuse lighting. But like even doing this comp, you know, it's good for me to then look back at it and go, actually, I don't like the shape of that tree, and it doesn't matter because it's not taken us that long. So you can just, you know, you go back to where the tree is. Where's all my tree layers? Just like that. And
you should name your layers.
yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, in production, always label your layers. That's something I don't do for my personal work usually.
Calling you out, sorry.
No, it's all right. You have to name your layers, or most of them, not all of them, but you know, it's the general ones. Say if you don't like the shape of the tree, you know, you can just sort of edit it quickly there. This is why I like doing separate layers, because you know, you can just sort of edit the ones you want and not have to paint over everything. Yeah, that's better. So yeah, I'd just call that done as a comp. You know, it's got the right feeling. And yeah, then I'd decide if I like it or not and go into the full painting.
It looks finished to me. But, obviously, I've seen your other work, so I know what you mean by it. But that's great. That's great. Could we've kept everyone a bit longer than we promised, but thank you for sticking around.
Yeah.
Be lovely if everyone put some nice words of encouragement, some love in the chat for Amy. That's been amazing to watch and see your process, and I'm hoping it's inspiring people to do little thumbnails and experiments and kind of, certainly that's for me the way you develop your process, by playing and working small and quick is really useful. I put, sorry, I mean, you go.
Sorry, I was going to say, I'm just looking at all the work on the Padlet. It's really, really lovely to see. Yeah, lots of really nice work.
And everyone's giving you lots of love in the chat, Amy. They're saying it's been so useful. Thank you. Great session. I love your work.
Thank you.
Amazing work. Thank you. Thanks in all capitals. And also, like, just before, and thank you, this has been really useful, which is great. And just before, like, I mean, we're going to wrap up in a second, but like, I really wanted to talk about your tattoos quickly.
Oh yeah.
Does everyone want to hear about those?
Yeah, I have a thing where I have a CV on my arm, basically. So I get one thing for like one character or one thing from each show that I've worked on, like tattooed onto my arm. Not that one, because obviously I was in the womb when that was made. That's something else. So yeah, like you've got the Mr. Bean Teddy here, and then you've got a character from a short by Andrew Chesworth that I was helping out on. That isn't out yet. You've got the Oakley Academy logo, because that's been such a part of my journey. Mimi the Mountain Dragon from a short I did for BBC. And then we've got Moomin from Moomin Valley. And I'm currently waiting to get Gromit the dog from Wallace and Gromit, and a bird in an ice cube for the Yellow Yeti. That's waiting to be booked in.
And those Mickey Mouse ears someday, right?
Oh yeah. I'm saving a good patch of my arm for those.
just get like a full back piece for that.
Yeah, massive one. Yeah.
Oh, Billy says, I've had the exact same tattoo idea for years. I'm so excited to find out someone else who's done this. So there you go.
Awesome.
You've realised someone's dream.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome, nice one. Yeah, and also it's like I kind of feel a bit like a sticker book at the minute, because it's been a work in progress for 7 years, and I still look like a sticker book. But eventually, once I get my whole arm done, I want them all sort of joined up with like patterns or shading in the middle, like a sleeve. Yeah. Awesome. Cool. Well, what I'll do is I'll send this feed to you, Dan, so you've got it if you want it for Padlet or whatever.
Yeah, I can stick it on the Padlet right now. Actually, if you want to email it to me, I can do it in the next sort of 5 minutes. People can have a little look. And
awesome. Yeah, sure, no problem. And thanks so much for having me. It's been really interesting. I've never spoken whilst painting before. It's just an experience.
How'd you find that, Amy?
It's been fantastic. Yeah, I've loved it. Like I didn't do any painting today, but just watching you do it, like as somebody who doesn't do backgrounds, it has been like, oh, this is kind of magic, and it's like, but it's so cool to see it like being built up from nothing, right?
Great. Oh, that's really good to hear. Thank you, because obviously I don't know how it looks to outsiders. I just know what's going on in my brain. So yeah, amazing. Thanks so much, guys.
That's brilliant. Yeah,
Thank you. Yeah,
thanks to everyone who stuck around, and those who left. Yeah, so messages of thanks again. So we'll say goodbye now. That's the last of us doing this before summer. We might return to this next year. Has anyone been inspired to do landscapes? I'm just going to keep waffling for a second. Who hasn't done that before? We've got a lot of character designers. Yeah, cool. Oh, nice one. Yeah. So I think yeah, go out and keep practicing. And yeah, and I think, just a wrap up from what we've been doing over the last 3 sessions, I think just make sure you're challenging yourself. It's been the sort of theme of these weeks. If you don't go out and enjoy in real life, that might be the one to take away from today, to go do that and practice. And yeah, if you're ever stuck in a creative rut, I think that's a really useful thing to do. I want to do landscape studying composition. Great. Cool. Okay, everyone. Thanks a lot. Cheers, Amy. Cheers, Dan.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Amy.
Good to see you.
Everyone.
Bye.
Okay, bye.